All right. What is the crack? What is the beef? I hope we're all good. Disconnecting the other phone there so the headphones are working. I hope my sound is all clear. Chefs, welcome to another video. Mental health and chefs is today's topic. Now, if you have any questions, I'm happy to do a Q&A at the end. If you're watching this live and you do have questions, please post them. If not, I'll carry on with our topic. So I just finished a podcast with Peter, and we were talking about mental health and the fact that it's an epidemic in the industry, especially in chefs. And we were talking about all the ways to deal with it and overcome it, and to make the situation better, and generally just discussing the state of play within the industry right now. And the truth is, it is an epidemic. You know what I mean? It is an epidemic. Again, a figure that really struck me recently, and me and Ella, my missus, have been doing research, going in and actually doing research and finding studies within the industry and trying to get a suss on how many people are leaving the industry, how, not only do we know mental health is a problem, how much of a problem is it for people? So we've been looking at research, and again, 10,000 chefs leave the trade in the UK every year. 10,000, that's just the UK, which is 10% of the total workforce in hospitality, which is a crazy fucking figure. And as we've been doing this research, we've been discovering all sorts of shit that has really made it starkly obvious of why mental health is a real problem within this industry. So the first thing is sweat points. Ella just said to me there, sweat points was something she was doing research on. And it was the fact that in certain restaurants way back when, the culture of vices and drinking and not taking care of yourself in the kitchen, there was no access to water in the taps in this kitchen years ago that she was referring to. So they would give the chefs pints to quench their thirst. And this resulted in a massive alcoholism problem within the kitchen. And it's formed as this start of the culture of chefs dealing with their life, their stressful life as a chef, with alcohol and other vices. Now, just to show that is basically the culture that's been there for many, many years. In my opinion, the mental health epidemic in the service industry and in the hospitality industry, in kitchens and in chefs especially, I believe a lot of the responsibility falls down to the employer. I feel a huge amount of responsibility of this falls down to the employer. I think chefs enter this industry with no real knowledge of how to take care of themselves, and then they're thrust into a fucking quagmire of stress, pressure, and long hours. Peter, what's happening, bro? All good, my end. Hope you're well, Chief. Chefs are thrown into a quagmire of stress, pressure, long hours. And then not only are you thrown into that quagmire, but you're programmed to believe and have this mentality that that's the way it has to be. You're supposed to be annihilated by your job. You're supposed to sacrifice your mental health, your physical health for the job. And on top of that, I think employers take full advantage of that fact. They take full advantage of that mentality where they ask chefs to come in on days off, and cover someone because they're short-staffed, because they don't run the business properly. They're expected to work for longer than they're contracted and still not get paid for the amount of time that they've actually worked, but still get paid for the fucking 40, 45 hours they're contracted for, despite the fact they may be working a 50, 60, 70, up sometimes an 80 or a 90-hour week. For me, that is the first fucking thing that we need to identify as the problem in this industry. Because like anything, human beings only have so much they can withstand. They only have so much they can take. And it doesn't matter how fucking resilient you are. I don't care how resilient you are. I know how resilient I am as a human being and how tough mentally I am. And I still know how I was breaking down. I know how fucked up I was at the time. I know how I was seeking to escape with vices. And I think a lot of this responsibility, first and foremost, falls down to the employers why the problem is happening. Something that we've been trying to do with ChefFit is that we've been trying to impact chefs on a larger scale by talking to restaurant groups and, HR departments. And, some of the response that we get back is we don't have time for this right now, which is fucking disgraceful in my opinion. It's disgraceful. We don't have time to take care of our staff. Sorry. And it's like, you're losing your staff every year. That's the truth. Whether just leaving the industry in general, suicide, fucking getting another job. Like, that is what happened. That's the reality right now. And I don't think a lot of employers, especially these big restaurant groups, they're not aware. They're unaware. And if they are aware, they don't fuck all the changes. Because the truth is, first and foremost, chefs should have, why is it chefs are the only ones that have really unfair employment structure? No union, you know what I mean? And bullshit contracts that don't really mean anything, and low levels of pay. And we're wondering why there's no chefs left. Of course there's no fucking chefs left. People aren't willing to do that anymore. So anyway, getting back to our point in hand is that mental health is a serious, serious problem that stems from the treatment of chefs and what's expected of them. And then the mindset and this old school mentality that they've been expected to have their entire lives and their entire careers in order to survive within that environment. Now, once we understand that, I know for a fact that your employer is not going to step in and save you anytime soon. It's going to be a couple of years before we really start to see change within this industry. And I hope to be part of that. I hope ChefFit is one of those things, and I plan on making it one of those things that raises awareness, becomes a fucking tool that chefs can use to make that change, and ideally going to employers and letting them bring us to the chefs. However, if in the meantime, that leaves it on you. That's the unfortunate thing about this. And like, you've had to take the high road within your career. You've had to work harder than Mary down the road doing a fucking 9 to 5. You've had to do all of these things to get to where you're at. And unfortunately, when it comes to fixing this problem, chef, you have to do the exact same thing, which is unfortunate, and it's annoying and it's frustrating, but it's the only way, and that's the reality. And we got to be real with ourselves here. So now that we know where the problem is coming from, now we got to identify a couple of things. First and foremost, how do we actually go about sorting this out? If you're going through depression, if you're going through a period where you're extremely anxious, you're going through a dark time, you're not in a good space mentally. Okay, cool. There's a couple of steps. And the thing, and where my opinion differs from a lot of people, is I think through fucking social media and Instagram, that mental health became something that was heavily stigmatized, that you couldn't talk about. Then it became something that fucking everyone talks about. So every fucking wanker and their dog on Instagram is hashtag anxiety, which in my personal opinion, I think is a load of fucking wank. I think it's a load of wank. And the reason that I think that is because it actually deters from the real conversation that should be had. And it deters from the people who are really suffering. So you can look at some fucking influence and twat who's got 1 million followers. He's going, I felt anxious today. You didn't. You're a cockwomble. Stop talking about it. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is created the wrong conversation where everyone wants to put their hand up and go, well, I've got the problem. I get it. I understand. And that is the first step. However, the key to changing your situation, chef, and getting out of the darkness and getting out of the shit is not to feel what you're experiencing and identify with it. That's not the thing to do. You know what I mean? So, for example, like if I have anxiety, like I've had many bouts of anxiety in my life. I've had many dark periods in my life. I've had many bouts of depression, especially when I was in the service industry. Very, very stressed out, using fucking, alcohol and weed to literally escape reality sometimes. And I remember how dark my headspace was then, and I couldn't deal with it, if that makes sense. I couldn't deal with it. I wasn't able to deal with it, so I sought to escape. Now, through those times, and what I realized was maybe I wasn't overly aware of what I was experiencing, but it's important to be able to say, I'm experiencing a bout of depression. I'm going through a dark period. I'm very anxious at the moment. The wrong thing to do is to say, well, I'm just an anxious person. I'm just a depressed person. This is just my life now. You identify with the problem, and that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you say that, well, this is just my life, it's like these people on Instagram looking for fucking attention. It's like you're identifying with the wrong thing. You need to identify that you're experiencing it, but don't identify that that's you, because emotions and states of mind, which is what you're going through, are like waves in an ocean. Sometimes the tide's in, sometimes the tide's out, sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's choppy, sometimes the water's murky, sometimes it's clear. Emotions work like that. And when you understand that, it's like that doesn't define who you are necessarily. So identify what you're going through, and then you need to speak out and have a conversation about it. So for the chefs that I speak to on the ChefFit consult, the free part of coming into ChefFit, you can have a conversation with me and I'll give you a coaching call for 45 minutes. Me or Ella will do it. But for a lot of chefs, that's the first step. That's the first point where they've actually been able to unload what they've been going through and tell you what's happening. And then I can give you clarity on where the problems are coming from. We can set goals going forward to give you that destination, and then we customize an action plan going forward. However, that conversation is extremely important, but the conversation is not the be all and end all. It's what follows the conversation that matters. And this is where my opinion differs from a lot of people. This industry of conversation has been opened. You've got the Burnt Chef Project. You've got pages opening up where people are talking. Great, fantastic. However, I feel the big key piece that's missing is practical. We're not giving chefs practical things that they can do. So for example, when I've had consults with a chef, there needs to be a plan of action that needs to be put in place and then executed in order to change the situation. If you're in a dark place, I could tell anyone I could fucking, two people watching this, like Thomas Clark and fucking Peter Jackson, two guys that were in the elite. Again, like they would probably tell you, in a fucking place where they were going through some shit, and then through the action of changing their lifestyle and how they were living their life, they were able to get themselves to a point where the feeling of bouts of depression were gone. And now they're in a very positive space and pushing towards other things in their life. Why? Because they changed. The problem was how they were living their life, this chef life programming that you have. Once you flip that on its head and then you start making it a very, very healthy change, you live your life in a very positive way, you remove the bullshit negativity, all of a sudden the problem starts to disperse and it's replaced with positivity and happiness. Interesting. That is not an easy thing to do. It's simple. It requires you to take action, and action is not easy for a lot of people. So chefs, think about it in a situation right now. How much of the problem that you're experiencing is down to, right? How much of the problem that you're experiencing right now, how much of that is down to how you're living your life? Think about how you were programmed when you first started in the kitchen, what you were told, how you're supposed to live, all of that shit. And then what impact has that had on your mental health since? Chances are that programming has led you to live your life in a very unhealthy way, and chances are that unhealthy lifestyle has had a massive impact on your headspace. So if we start changing that unhealthy lifestyle and make it a healthy lifestyle that's consistent, and then you start building habits and routines out of that healthy lifestyle, you change who you are. And ultimately, when you change who you are and how you live your life, you change your headspace for good. Obviously, you're going to have bouts with anything, as I said, states of mind, but they become few and far between as opposed to a consistent thing. So chefs, what I want you to do for me right now is post in the comments. Let me know if you have struggled in the past and if you are struggling now and what your current situation is mentally. If there's anything I can do to help, I would love to help, and I'll answer any questions that I possibly can. But with that in mind, that's our video for today. We've gone on long enough. Much love. I'll chat to you all soon. Stay safe.